Good afternoon. My name is Natasha White, and I am the coordinator for the Virginia Coalition on Solitary Confinement. Today on Solitary No More VA, I will be introducing Chelsea Mullins, the wife and girlfriend of, say your husband's
Shannon
name,
Jennings.
Shannon Jennings, who unfortunately, supposedly, committed suicide in a Virginia prison this summer. Welcome, Chelsea. And we want to send our dearest condolences, most sincerest condolences to you and your family. I appreciate you being willing to speak on this issue. I know it is hard for you and your children. And I'm just here to give you the platform to try and get you some justice. And if you can't get justice, to at least get you some support. How are you doing today, Chelsea?
Day by day, I'm doing okay. Each day is better.
Can you tell us what happened, like from the beginning?
We had he was considered my co-defendant.
Mhm.
We were both released on bond on pretrial. We were released together from Rockingham County in Harrisonburg, Virginia. We went home, we thought everything was okay. In the meantime, the probation officer wanted to do a home check. And he didn't live where he had put the address.
Okay.
So they say.
Yeah.
They violated him. He went back to Rockingham County. He had court on the 29th
So
of
how
July.
many days was he been? How many days had he been back at the county since the remand?
It wasn't long. I don't even think it was a month.
Okay.
In the meantime, I still had contact with our probation officer.
Mhm.
Because we had the same probation officer.
Mhm.
I still had contact with the probation officer, and he had mentioned to me before that he thought going to a 30-day rehab would be, I guess, sufficient.
Okay.
Well, I was against him going to the rehab, and Shannon was against him going to the rehab. So we had planned it to where Shannon was to be released and reside with his family.
Okay.
We had thought everything was okay, that's what was going to happen. We were looking forward to it.
Mhm.
I was at work July 29th. The last phone call I received was 1:07 before his court date. His court date was, I think, scheduled for like 3 or 3:30,
Mhm.
and it was virtual.
Okay.
I didn't attend the court date, and I had thought maybe that he was going to come and surprise me at work.
Mhm.
Because we were all under the assumption that he was going to be released. I had the kids that evening. I had our 4-year-old daughter and my 1-year-old son, and I hadn't heard from him, which I thought was really, really weird.
Right.
They went to their grandmother's about 8 o'clock that night.
Mhm.
Still hadn't heard from him.
Mhm.
I do remember the last time, our last conversation, he wanted, well, obviously to come home.
Right.
But he was very against him going to the 30-day rehab because it wasn't a rehab that was close to where we live. He was very, very against that. And I know the probation officer wanted him to agree to go to the rehab, and he would
Right.
not agree. The the last words he said to me was, "It's okay, babe. We'll get through this. I love you."
Right. And then what happened? I understand. Take a minute if you need to.
Um,
I'm so sorry. Like every time I speak to you, it breaks my heart because that is the final sacrifice right there. Like Shannon going to solitary. To me, first of all, the story sounds a little fishy.
mhm.
But I'm not going to mention that because the viewers don't know the story yet. Once you tell the story, then we'll touch base on how corrections and law enforcement cover things up. Because that's nothing new.
Yeah. Um,
So you hadn't
you know,
spoken to him that night, and that was weird.
yeah, and I remember him saying that he said, "I just switched my last few dollars over here to make this last phone call to you." Um, so, but he had a few friends like in his pod. I do know that, and they would always, they would look out for each other.
Right.
Um, so I had just thought that he was going to call me, and he didn't call me that night. And about 1 o'clock in the morning, I got the horrible news. From his mother.
And she called you and said what?
Shannon's gone. So it kind of felt like I was in a dream,
Right.
Because the situation that we were in affected all of us, our children.
Absolutely.
We weren't in a good living situation, but we had a game plan and we had everything set in motion, for our children and what we were going to do when he came home. And it was just so surreal. I didn't on the 30th, I had spoke to, or the 29th, the very next day, I had went to our best friend's house, because I didn't want them to find out via social media.
Mm-hmm.
And I finally had gotten a hold of the investigator after being transferred to 4 different people. And just the whole thing didn't make sense to me because we were all under the assumption that he was going to be released that day. He had court, I did ask questions, obviously, and one of my main questions was, if they noticed that he was upset or anything before he did that, because they said that he asked to be put in solitary confinement.
Okay, so for clarification, tell me in detail what they claim happened. Like he asked to go to solitary confinement. Is this right after he got back from court? I mean, court is virtual, so he didn't even leave the jail.
Mm-hmm. They told me that he asked to be put in solitary confinement or wrote a note and said that he was having issues with somebody and he wanted to be alone. They said they took him to solitary confinement And roughly around sometime that evening, they discovered him. It wasn't until like 1 o'clock in the morning
Right.
that I received the news. So of course, my first question was, why did it take you guys so long, you know,
Yeah.
to come to us to give us the news? And the time frame doesn't make sense. I've
Right.
talked to a few of his friends,
Hmm.
and he didn't seem to have any issues with anybody.
Right.
I've reached out to multiple people trying to find answers, and I feel like I was kind of not made to be quiet, but I could tell that they wanted me to just leave it alone and to just drop
Yeah,
it.
of course, because something doesn't add up.
Mhm.
Now, as I have told you on numerous conversations that I've had, being formerly incarcerated and knowing how the prison system works, every man is for himself. So to me, what doesn't make sense at all is a man who has just been basically remanded back into custody after making bail in the state of Virginia tells me that the crime is not severe enough for a person to think they're never going to see the light of day again. For the small time that I've been in Virginia, I do know that they definitely over sentence people here. But I also know that the system here is slow. And if the crime that in which y'all are co-defendants on was so severe, you wouldn't have gotten a bail or an ROR. That's number one. Number two, this man has a wife, 2 kids, and a family outside of that, which shows support. And then the fact that it's the first day that he went into solitary, because don't get me wrong, the majority of people, every other day, someone in solitary confinement attempts suicide. Every other day. The torture that you endure while in solitary will drive somebody mad, but that doesn't happen overnight. Especially with them claiming that he asked to go. That's where the discrepancy comes in. If he's not new to this, he's been in a pod. I don't know how many times he's been to prison. I don't know any of that, but I do know one day, couple of hours in solitary confinement when you requested to go there, supposedly does not warrant a suicide. So something ain't right. Department of Corrections is covering something up as usual. I know in our conversations, we talked about them having a tape, a recording. I've never seen a recording inside of a cell, first of all, a video camera inside of a cell. So was he in supposedly a cell by himself, or was he in a pod? And then the question for that is, if he was in a pod, other people would be able to see him. So how did this man take his own life with nobody seeing it? And then supposedly, where is the videotape? Exactly. It's a lot involved. And I know emotionally, you're probably not equipped for the nonsense. You know what I'm saying? Because nothing you do will bring Shannon back. But as I always tell you, and everybody else that I speak to, you got to go hard. You know what I'm saying? This is the ultimate sacrifice because there's no coming back from it. And I started doing the work that I do now, because of the things that I lost due to solitary confinement, and it started in my relationship. You know what I'm saying? But that man that I was with, that was severely damaged and by solitary confinement and end up changing my life has another day to live.
Mhm.
You know, the fact that you and your children do have lost your loved one and have no answers because they're not answering anything. They're blowing
Mm-mm.
smoke up your behind. You know, it's really upsetting that you don't know specifically what happened to your man. We're here to help you, and we may not be able to bring Shannon back, but we may be able to prevent anybody else from becoming Shannon, or his loved ones. You know, last year the coalition presented a bill of legislation that was passed in the Senate, and but killed in the House. So we've drafted another bill. Um, and we will get our ass, whether it be this year, next year, or the year after. We're not going to stop. However, for you, what I can say to you is keep doing what you're doing,
Mhm.
because you deserve an answer. And the answer they're giving you is not the truth, clearly. Um, keep showing up for him. That's the only way you're going to heal. And it'll never
Mhm.
go away. It'll never go away, but your days will get easier. Your children will have answers. Even if they're too young to understand what's going on right now, they just know daddy didn't come home. One day they will hear this story and they will be
Mhm.
like, yo, this doesn't make sense. And it doesn't. I do know that solitary confinement is used for many different reasons. None of them are for safety, because it's not safe in there. Isolating one person is never safe, you know, and they call it protective custody when it's because there's a threat to you. But most of the time, even in protective custody, it is more than one person in there. Everybody that needs PC goes together. It's a whole unit. Not one person is locked in their cell. And I will be truthfully honest with you. I would seek a wrongful death suit, and that way you could subpoena the tapes. You could
Seeing a
subpoena.
lot of it's because we were engaged, we weren't married.
You have
And
children
that's,
in common.
yeah, and that's what's made it very hard, I feel
Yeah,
like, because um, you know,
his mother has
ultimately,
to say right now.
yes. And I don't want anybody else to have to go through what I've had to go through,
Yeah,
and I want to be able to tell my children when they're older the truth. And you know, for me to do that, I need proof. I need answers, and I feel like the whole time they've just given me the runaround. Um, and it's not right at all, because ultimately, that was a human being. He was
yes.
a wonderful father, and nobody should ever have to wonder, you know, that's the thing. It just, all the questions. And I was always kind of like, I feel like they just wanted me to hush up.
To hush up so it'll go away.
Hmm.
Because something's not right. See, when you're telling the truth, you don't care who probes and pokes.
Hmm.
When you're covering something up, you just want to brush it under the rug and carry on with your day because you don't want anybody looking into it. And even with the fact that you're not being married to him, you have 2 children by him. I'm pretty sure there is a way for you to pull some rank, because now
Hmm.
who's going to take care of your kids? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Hmm.
and I'm not going to comment on what I feel his mother should be doing because that's not my business. But for some reason, she needs to be, convinced that she's doing her son a disservice by not helping you
Hmm.
find out what happened to him.
Yeah, I would never want my my son, or his family to ever go through,
Yeah.
what we're going through. Um, I've asked to see so much stuff, and every time it's came to that point, I feel like I'm knocked down again because no matter what, they won't show me any proof. And that's what I want. I just want to see proof.
You're right.
And they won't.
Because they don't have any.
Mhm.
People with proof, provide the proof. If you could say anything to your legislators right now about the use of solitary and the way the prisons are ran, what would you say?
Um, they need to take a step back and picture themselves in that situation.
Absolutely.
How would they feel, or how would they expect their loved ones to feel?
Thank you so much. I want to tell you that I really appreciate you coming on today. I know this is hard for you to talk about. And as I told you before, we're here for you. I'm hoping to be seeing you soon because I have some stuff to send you. I need you to send me your address so I can send you the shirts. And we'll talk. If you need me, you have my number. Um, we're fighting, and I'm grateful to have you in the fight with me. My prayers go out to you and your children. I hope Shannon is resting peacefully, and I hope you get to the bottom of this. And anything I can do to help you, I will. That's today's episode on Solitary No More VA. Chelsea Mullins, Natasha White. Thank you.